The world doesn't seem to have made for human beings anymore. There doesn't seem to be any room for us. We all have fantastic new technologies, all these computers, mobile phones and sat-navs and the rest. It's supposed to help us communicate with one another and get around the planet without getting lost. But if you ask me, no one communicates properly anymore. No one gets to know each other, not even their own neighbour. And when it comes to where we're going, the human race is completely lost. No one knows what direction to turn. I am writing this letter on the day of the National Postal Strike. I've been on strike a lot lately. There have been many days where the mail didn't come. To be honest, I don't even know if I know what it was all about. I mean, I know why I went on strike. I know why I voted for it. But I'm not really sure that the uni had the same set of reasons as me. And I'm not sure by the time it was all over whether everything was really has changed. But I want to tell you why I chose to go on strike. It wasn't about the pay. I'm underpaid. I could do with some more pay. Fortunately, I've no responsibilities anymore. This isn't true of most of our workmates. Many of them have young families. It's very hard for them, working so hard for a little reward, being tired at the end of the day, and then can't even enjoy their home life properly. But it wasn't about pay for any of us. It was about the future. It was about the future of the public service. Does this mean, like all old-fashioned phrases to you, public service, a bit out of place in our modern world? It's not a term that managers use anymore. They talk about products. That's what always puzzles me. We're products. We deliver the mail, don't we? We stick letters through letterboxes. I was talking to one of the guys a few weeks ago. We were chatting about when he had first started out as a postman. He'd been on the induction course over in the main office in the nearby city. This must have been a few years back, since no one goes to induction courses anymore. He said that he'd been asked a particular question about the running of the course. What does Royal Mail deliver, he was asked. There were about 20 people in the room. They all had to write down a list. Letters, bills, packages, postcards, birthday cards, magazines, Christmas cards, presents, books, DVDs, you name it. I'm sure you can make up a list of your own. Then the guy running the course went round and asked everyone what was not on the list, and everyone read out from their list, and every time someone added a new item and they put it onto their own list, and the whiteboard at the end had no more room, pretty long in the list. Then everyone was satisfied with the list they were collectively made, and the guy said, "But you've missed something out." Everyone looked at each other and then wondering what it was they'd all missed out. You want to know what they'd missed? He said, yes. They said, it's advertising. See, that's what we deliver. Most, not letters or cards or presents, not bank statements or credit card statements, not even bills. Advertising. That's what makes up the bulk of the mail. The stuff that everyone gets but no one reads. That's what our products are. Cheaper and cheaper ways to shovel more and more advertising through the letterbox. Stuff you never asked for. Stuff you never needed. Stuff which gets delivered anyway, whatever you ask for it or not. Stuff. We stuff your letterbox with stuff, and we stuff it through the letterbox, and then you stuff it in the bin. You say, get stuff. Then the bin men come round and they stuff it in a hole in the ground. Or you're really lucky, it gets recycled, which means it gets made into more stuff before it really gets stuffed into the ground, or something it gets stuffed into a container and delivered to some third world country where it gets stuffed into a hole in their ground. It ends up in the ground at the end. So you asked me why I went on strike, and I could say, it's so I don't have to deliver quite so much stuff. But you ask the union, they will say, that stuff pays your wages. Interestingly enough, that's what the managers say too. See, I'm not sure why I strike was for the same reasons as my union. I went on strike for more time and less stuff, and for a return to the public service. That seems to be the recipe for the happy life. What follows in my letter to you, Granny Smith, my letter of apology for everything that has gone wrong with Royal Mail. I first started working for Royal Mail in November 1979. I transferred from BT, which in those days, if you remember, was part of the same company. It was called the Post Office. This was the same year Margaret Thatcher came to power, but before she started selling off the family silver to pay for the servants, as Harold Macmillan so memorably put it. It was a different job in those days. For a start, we had proper training. I was trained for a whole week, going out and shadowed in one postie. We were taught all the tricks of the trade, all the shortcuts, and the best way to do it round every walk. How to pack your bag, how to bundle up the letters, how to do loops, where to leave a bite, what to look out for, what to avoid, where all the fierce dogs were. These days people are just thrown out on the street without any training at all. If the dog goes for them, it's all their fault. There was a 4-man rota covering these deliveries, with 1 man in reserve. It was a 6-day week, 7 hours and 40-minute days. Saturdays was job and not, meaning when you finished delivering on a Saturday you went home. It was a lighter day too, with no second deliveries, so you were finished by 9:30. That's why we didn't mind the 6-day week. It was almost as good as having the whole weekend off. better in fact, because we got an early start. Start time then was 4:45. There was always someone already in there when we arrived. This was the PhG, the postman higher grade. We don't have PhGs anymore. They abolished the grade a few years back. The PhG earned a few quid more than the rest of us, but then they decided to phase him out. His wages dropped increasing and all the differentials faded, and the ordinary postman pay started to catch up, and all the old PhGs retired. So the grade quietly slipped out of existence. Like an old postman's cap dropped into a river and carried out to sea and then slowly sneaked beneath the waves. Our last PhG, Bill, that was over 2 years ago now, but the PhG was important to the structure of Royal Mail as it was. He wasn't management, he came up from the ranks, so he was like a sergeant major. He had more authority than the rest of us, and a few more duties. For instance, Bill was in charge of the cage. It was the secure part of the office where the keys and the valuables are kept. It's called the cage because it's reinforced so no one could break into it. It is here too where they kept the special deliveries, the higher paid premium mail, in which to place value goods and documents, which was guaranteed to arrive by 1 p.m. the next day. Us postmen had to sign to say we'd received it, and then sign it again to return it. At one time the PhE was in sole possession of the cage, and no one had access to it without Bill's permission. These days there are at least half a dozen ordinary postmen who do the same job. The PhD no longer exists, and there's no discipline anymore. Bill was kind, stern and funny at times. He'd say, "Oi, oi, Mr. Mayor," and called me over to the office for a ticking off when I made a mistake, which I often did in the early days. And when he'd finish with me, he'd say, "Well, we'll learn ya, we'll make a postman of you yet." I loved old Bill, and I was even assistant PhD for a while. That was before they abolished the grade, of course. These days there's nothing left to aspire to. Anyway, as I say, we started at 4:45. First of all, it was all the internal sorting. The mailbags come in, and we tip it all out and sort it onto the original walks. There were more walks than the more of us to do then. There were no junk mail in those days, or very little. No advertising leaflets, no special offers, no mass mail out catalogues, no charities begging you for cash, no generalised mail envelopes to the house occupier or the whole householder, no surveys, no letters with pens in them to help you reply, no promises of guaranteed free gifts that are always turning up to have strings attached, no garnished envelopes offering cash prizes, no free draws, no miniaturised sachets containing free samples of air conditioner, no free energy saving light bulbs, no pizza adverts, no 2 for the price of 1 deals. No, in those days there were letters, there were bills, there were bank statements, there were postcards, birthday cards and anniversary cards. There were few packages, some special delivery, some recorded, not much more, and if we had 1 bag of mail sort a week we complained. Let me explain what mail sort is. Actually, you wouldn't recognise it. It's a form of third-class corporate mail, very cheap. It has a big M in the right-hand corner instead of the Queen's Head, and it's mean by all this advertising comes through the post. If you want to know what to throw away, then it's a fair chance it will have an M on it in the corner. Probably more than 2/3 of what we deliver these days is mail sorts. 30 years ago it has hardly existed, so sorting was finished fairly quickly, say in about an hour. Then we prepared our rounds, sorting the letters into slots and individual addresses before bundling up the mail and putting it in a bag ready to go out. That was at 6:45. Notice I said a bag, not 10 bags, which is what we take out these days. 1 bag, admittedly, was a very full bag. There was no weight limits in those days. We stuffed all the mail in one huge bag, piled up like Leaning Tower of Pisa on the front of our bikes, and took it out. There were no drop-off points, no secure points where the mail was kept so you could pick up your extra bag. There was no extra bags. I think this was probably different in the metropolitan areas. They did things differently in the city, but all the rounds from the office were done on bikes, and we took them out in one load. So now, here's something I want you to imagine. Probably one of you are early risers, so you know what the world looks like at that time in the morning. It depends on the time of year, and of course, the weather. But sometimes you go out of the office just as the sun was coming up, and it would be like you were cycling through your own personal corner of Eden. The lovely soft golden light with the early morning, listening to the birds singing and the suburban gardens all bursting with flowers, and there was just you, the milkman, a few dog walkers and the occasional late night reveller who winding his way home from the night before. As a postie, you've already been up for 2 hours by now. You're fresh, in the peak of health. There's no traffic fumes, just the wind bustling in from the coast and the great vast gardens of the earth all around you. It's like the whole earth has grown bigger, like it was taken in a breath and expanded itself, stretching itself to shake off the night. See, that's what it was like. That was why posties were always happy. Why, if you said good morning to a poster, you'd always get a chirpy reply. I mean, you can't speak for everyone. Everyone is different, of course. But I seem to remember, and I don't think I'm imagining it, that us posties were among the happiest in the whole world. So that's it. That's what I want you to imagine. I want you to hear the songs in a postie's heart as he slides the letters through the letterbox. It's a song made up of dawn colours, birdsong, and your letters bathing in morning light. That's what your postage stamp used to pay for. Not just getting a letter from here to there. Not just a delivery, but a little spark of Eden. Now, as you all know, I work for the post office, and basically, Dear Granny Smith, it's a book that a postman, oh, let me do it like that, was given at work, and it's written by a postman, and it's just sums up the whole lot of it, because I was a PhD actually, not that I had the grade, but I was a PhD, up until recently I went back to being a postie, but I remember the early starts. That was when it was a better public service, but I weren't there when you had long and short letters and all that. But yeah, there's a few more chapters in this book. I've just read 2 of them, so if you'd like me to continue reading this book to you, then I'll carry on. Just let me know in the comments below. Okay, peace, love and light.